Good morning, Year 5, and welcome to your reading lesson for the end of this week. So today we're going to be looking at making inferences. So we're going to look at inferring information from the text. So what we need to be able to do by the end of this lesson is you need to be able to identify keywords in the text and the questions. This is based on a skill we looked at yesterday. You need to be able to read around the text to find evidence to support your answer for the question. You need to be able to draw conclusions about the story or about a specific part of the story using evidence. And you need to be able to ask questions that are going to help and improve your understanding of the text. And at the end, you're going to be given a challenge to answer some inference style questions. And some of those might be some find and copy questions. So what we're going to do today is we are going to have a practice of retrieval based on some of the work we did yesterday, just to warm our brains up a little bit. So let's have a look at the vocabulary that we looked at yesterday. So I would like you to think about the word assembled. Okay, we looked at the word assembled yesterday. Can you write a synonym and an antonym for the word assembled? Can you write a sentence using the word assembled? And do you think you can remember the other word that we learnt yesterday? So pause the video and jot down your answers to those three questions. Okay, so a synonym for assembled. Okay, so another word for assembled we could use was convene, we could gather, we could meet, we could congregate. Okay, so those were some of our similes for yesterday. So remember, assembled means to come together as one big group for a common purpose. Now, I wonder if you could have remembered an antonym. So we're looking for an antonym, and that means it's the opposite of our word. So we need the opposite of assembled. So we could have disperse, we could have spread out, we could have scatter, we could have divide, we could have distribute. So those are some of the antonyms that we could use for our word. So well done if you managed to pick one of those synonyms or antonyms for the word. Now, can you write a sentence using the word assembled? So if I think of one top of my head, so Year 5 assembled nice and quietly in the corridor. So that means that you all lined up and all got together into the corridor. What you were waiting for, I don't know. Maybe it was to come into class and do some awesome lessons with Miss Humphrey. Who knows? Who knows? Now, do you think you can remember the other word we learnt yesterday? Good job. So wearily. I wonder if you remember what wearily was. I'll give you a clue. I think on the previous slide we had a picture of a dog that almost looked like he'd face planted the floor. You're right, it means to be extremely tired. I guarantee you somewhere down the line some of you might become a little bit weary as we work through our home learning. But we'll try and keep it as interesting and as informative to keep you awake. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and read some of our pages. So you will need the pages in front of you, okay? So you need to have pages 10 and 11, 12 and 13 in front of you, okay? So we'll have a quick recap on what we looked at yesterday. So our story yesterday was all the dragons gathered for Rat to make this announcement. And the announcement was that the humans were coming and they were going to flood the land. And they had to come up with some kind of plan of how they were going to avoid this. And we finished it on the sentence where Sorrel says, well, you don't know what humans are like. None of you know what the humans are like and what they're capable of. So now we're going to go into the rest of that speech, that description from Sorrel. So same as always, if you'd like to sit and read it on your own, then pause the video and you can skip this part, or you can sit and listen to me read it to you. So let's start at the top of page 10. Human beings don't go about in suits of armour these days like they used to when they hunted you dragons, but they're still dangerous. More dangerous than anything else in the world. Oh, nonsense, said a large, stout dragon scornfully, and turned his back on Sorrel. Let the two legs come. Rats and brownies might be feared to them, but we are dragons. What can they do to us? What can they do to you? Sorrel threw her nibbled mushroom away and sat up very straight. She was angry now, and an angry brownie is not to be trifled with. You've never set foot outside the valley, you dimwit, she said. I expect you think human beings sleep on leaves like you. I expect you think they do not harm. They do harm more to a fly because they don't live much longer than one. I expect you think they've got nothing in their heads but eating and sleeping, but they aren't like that. Oh no, not these days. Sorrel was practically gasping for air. Those things that sometimes fly across the sky, being so stupid, you call them noisy birds. Those things are machines built by humans for travelling through the air. And human beings can talk to each other when they aren't in the same country. They can conjure up moving, talking pictures, and they have cups made of ice that never melts, and their houses shine at night as if they're trapped by the sunlight. And Sorrel shook her head. And they can do wonderful things, terrible things too. If they want to flood this valley with water, then they will, and you'll have to leave whether you like it or not. Well, the dragon stared at her, even the one who had just turned his back. Some of them looked up at the mountains as if they expected machines to come crawling over the black peaks any moment. Oh, drat it, muttered Sorrel. Now he's gone and made me so cross I threw my delicious mushroom away. It was a oyster mushroom too. But you don't find those here very often. In a thoroughly bad temper, she scrambled down off Firedrake's back and started searching the wet grass for her titbit. You heard, all of you, said Slatebeard. We have to leave. Uncertainly, their legs heavy with fear, the dragons turned to him again. For some of you, the old dragon continued, it will be the first time, but many of us have had to flee from human beings before, although now it is extremely difficult to find a place that doesn't belong to them. Slateboard shook his head, sadly. It seems to me there are more and more of them with every new moon. Yes, they're all over the place, said the dragon, who had been mocking Sorrel a moment ago. It's only when I fly over the sea that I don't see their lights beneath me. Then we must just try living in harmony with them, suggested another dragon. But Slatebeard shook his head. No, he said, no one can live in harmony with human beings. Oh, yes, they can. Rat stroked her wet coat. Dogs and cats do, and mice and birds, even us rats. But you, she said, letting her gaze rove over the dragon, you're too big, too clever, and, she added, shrugging her shoulders, too different. You'd frighten them, and when something frightens human beings, they destroy it, the old dragon said wearily. They almost wiped us out once before, many, many hundreds of years ago. He raised his heavy head and looked at the younger dragons one by one. I hoped they would at least leave us this valley. It was a foolish hope. But where are we going to go? Cried one of the dragons in despair. So let's have a look at some vocabulary from that section of our reading. So if you have a look on page 10, there is a quote that said a large dragon scornfully. So we're going to look at the word scornfully. Now scornfully is an adverb, but if we have a look at the root word means to scorn. So scornfully, looking at our adverb, is 3 syllables. Scornfully. Scornfully. Okay, so 3 syllables. Now, to define what scornfully means, or to be scornful, it means to show a dislike or have a rude attitude towards someone or something. So let's put it into another sentence so you understand. I don't care what you say, remarked Joseph scornfully. So this is telling us how he said it. So he said it in a rude manner, in a disgusting manner, maybe in a mocking manner. But let's change that and have a look at our synonyms to see if it helps you understand the sentence even more. So I don't care what you say, remarked Joseph mockingly, remarked Joseph sneeringly, marked him scornfully, so we can be scornful, remarked Joseph sarcastically, or remarked Joseph disdainfully. So we can turn those words into adverbs to describe how Joseph has made his remark. Now the opposite of scornful would be the opposite of being disrespectful or having a dislike towards someone. So you like someone, you're respectful towards them, and you have a positive attitude. So you could say that they are admiring, they are applauding, so they're almost praising that person. They are appreciative, so when you appreciate someone, you respect them for their effort and their time, and even approving. So if you like something, you approve of it. If you're doing the opposite, which is scornful, you would dislike it, so you would disapprove. So those are our antonyms and our synonyms for the word scornfully, okay? We're going to read on the next 2 pages and have a look at some more vocabulary work, and I'm going to explain your task for today. So let's start at the top of page 12. This is our home. Slatebeard did not reply. He looked up at the night sky where the stars were still hidden behind clouds and sighed. Then he said huskily, Go back to the rim of heaven. We have to stop running away sometime. I'm too old. I shall crawl into my cave and hide, but you younger ones can make it. All the younger dragons looked at him in surprise. The rest of them, however, raised their heads and looked eastward, their eyes full of longing. The rim of heaven, Slatebeard closed his eyelids. Its mountains were so tall that they touched the sky. Moonstone caves lie hidden among its slopes, and the floor of the valley in the middle of the mountains is covered with blue flowers. When you were children, we told you stories about the rim of heaven. You may have thought they were fairy tales, but some of us have actually been there. He opened his eyes again. I was born there, so long ago that eternities lie between me and that memory. I was younger than most of you are now when I flew away, tempted by the wide sky, and I flew westward, on and on. I had never dared to fly into the sunlight since. I had to hide from humans who thought I was the bird of the devil. I tried to go back to the rim, but I could never find the way. The old dragon looked at his young companions. Seek the rim of heaven, go back to the security of its peaks, and then perhaps you will never have to flee from men again. They aren't here yet, he said, nodding towards the dark mountain tops around the valley, but they will come soon. I have felt it for a long time. Don't linger. Fly. Fly away. All was perfectly still again. Drizzling rain as fine as dust fell from the sky. Sorrel hunched her head between her shoulders, shivering. Oh, thanks a million, she whispered to Firedrake. The rim of heaven, eh? Sounds too good to be true. If you ask me, the old boy dreamed it up. Firedrake did not reply, but looked up at Slatebeard thoughtfully. Then he suddenly stepped forward. Hey, whispered Sorrel in alarm. What's the idea? Don't do anything silly. But Firedrake took no notice. You're right, Slatebeard, he said. In any case, I'm tired of living in hiding, never flying outside this valley. He turned to the others. Let us look for the rim of heaven. Come on, let's set out today. The moon is waxing. There'll be no better night for us. The others shuddered as if he had taken leave of his senses, but Slatebeard smiled for the first time that night. You're still rather young, Firedrake, he pointed out. I'm old enough, replied Firedrake, raising his head a little higher. He was not much smaller than the old dragon, but his horns were shorter and his scales shone in the moonlight. Here, hang on, wait a mo! Sorrel scrambled hastily up Firedrake's neck. What's all this nonsense? You may have flown beyond the hills, all of 10 times, but, she said, spreading out her arms and pointing to the mountains around him, but you have no idea what lies further. You can't just fly away through the human world looking for a place they may not even exist. Be quiet, Sorrel, said Firedrake crossly. Won't, spat the brownie girl. See the others? Do they look as if they want to fly away? No, so forget it. If human beings really come, I'm sure I can find us a nice new cave. I'm going to pause it here and we'll recap that sentence in our next lesson. So, some different vocabulary in there, but I'm going to pinpoint this one specifically because it can have a slightly different meaning depending on the context you put it in. So have a look on page 12. It says their eyes full of longings. This is when they were looking up at the mountains. Now, the word longing in this sentence is a noun. So we're describing something, so a longing. But if you were to use it in this sentence of their longing eyes, you could also use it as an adjective. So longing in itself is 2 syllables. Longing, longing. Okay, and it means to have a strong desire or want for something or someone. For example, Miss Humphrey had a longing for lemon drizzle cake all day. I love a good piece of lemon drizzle cake. So I had a longing for it. So I had a want, I had a desire. So let's replace the word longing with some of our synonyms. So Miss Humphrey had a desire for lemon drizzle cake, a want for the cake, a yearning. Yearning's a brilliant word. So a yearning for lemon drizzle, a thirst. So although we're not describing the fact that we're thirsty, when we're thirsty, we need it, we want it, don't we? So it's to have almost a thirst or a hunger, so a desperate need and want. And we can also say that it's a craving. Miss Humphrey had been craving a lemon drizzle cake all day. But unfortunately, Miss Humphrey didn't get any lemon drizzle cake. So Miss Humphrey's sad about that. Now let's change it and think about our antonyms. We're looking for the opposite. What's the opposite of desiring something and really wanting something? So you could be uninterested. You could be nonchalant. That's a very good word. Or you can be completely detached. So it's the opposite of having a strong desire, so having no desire and no want whatsoever. Okay, so that is our second vocab word that we're looking at today. So we have longing. Okay, so longing.